I'm going to show you how to get the best possible price when negotiating an offer on your home. Stick with me to the end and I'll even give you tips on how to make your initial offer. Stay tuned. Knowing how to negotiate an offer can save you tens of thousands of dollars when purchasing real estate. This is where real estate deals are really made. When negotiating an offer, there are 3 factors you need to consider. First, what are the comparable properties selling for? When you find a property you're interested in buying, make sure to have your realtor run the comps on the property to see what similar properties are selling for. This will help you develop a general price range that you're willing to pay. When researching the comps, however, what you should not do, and I know all buyers try this, but what you should not do is look at what the seller previously paid for their property and try to base your offers on that. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but it doesn't matter what the seller previously paid for it. Those home prices are no longer around. Yesterday's price is not today's price. After you've researched your comps, the next thing you need to know is how much buyer competition is there for this property. Now, it's hard to know for sure, but there are a few ways you can tell if there's a lot of buyer competition. For instance, when you went to see the property, were there a lot of other buyers there? Was it hard for your realtor to actually schedule a showing because a lot of the slots were taken? Another tip for this is to have your realtor reach out to the seller's realtor to simply ask if there's a lot of buyer competition. Now, you may not get a completely honest answer, but you'll be surprised how much info the seller's agent is willing to give you. If the home isn't getting a lot of action, the seller's agent may tell you that outright, or they may try to dance around the topic a little bit. If there's a lot of competition, once again, they're going to tell you right away, so you'll know. Knowing how much buyer competition there is on a property is very important because it can drastically change your strategy and what your initial offer is going to be. For instance, if there isn't a lot of buyer competition, feel free to make that lowball offer because the seller may be more willing to negotiate. If there's a lot of buyer competition, however, you might only get one shot at making an offer, so make sure you offer your highest and best. How do you know what your highest and best offer is? More on that later. The third thing you need to consider when making an offer is how long has this property been on the market? If the property is new to the market, then whether it's getting a lot of buyer competition or not, that seller will most likely hold out for the asking price or the price that they're looking for. If the property has been on the market for a long time, however, that seller may start to get desperate and they may be more willing to look at lowball offers. Now, exactly how long does it have to be on the market for a seller to start to entertain lower offers? This, of course, varies from seller to seller. But in my experience, if the home has been on the market for over 21 days, the seller will start to become more willing to listen to lower offers. One thing to keep in mind, however, is if there is a recent price change on a property, like for instance, they just dropped the sales price by $10,000, that clock kind of resets. Now that we've gone over 3 things to consider when making your offer, exactly what should your initial offer be? Unless you're in a multiple offer situation, I always recommend that you make your first offer lower than the asking price. However, don't make your offer too low, otherwise you may insult the seller and the seller may not even take you serious. Whether an offer is too low or not really depends on the market, so make sure you're consulting with your realtor to decide what your initial offer should be. Now, let's say there isn't multiple offers on a property, but you feel the property has a lot of buyer competition and you feel the property is going to sell soon. In that case, I suggest that you make an offer somewhere close to the asking price, even though not exactly the asking price. Your strategy here is to simply get the seller to agree to a deal with you before any other buyers can get to it. If there are multiple offers on a property, then I suggest you make your highest and best offer. Here's what I tell my clients when they get into a multiple offer situation. 1, you can completely ignore the asking price because if you're in a multiple offer situation, chances are somebody's going to go above the asking price. Next, you really need to sit down and think about what's the most money that you want to offer for this property because you're only going to get one shot. I then suggest that you make that offer and simply leave all your cards out on the table. If you get beat out on that offer, then somebody wanted that property more than you. But at least this way, if you do get beat out on the offer, you're not left thinking, what if, or thinking, man, I wish I would have offered more money for that property. After you make your initial offer, you now have to wait to see how the seller responds. The seller can respond in a few ways. 1, they can accept your offer, which this rarely happens on the first offer. The seller almost never just accepts the initial offer. That's just the way it is. 2, the seller makes a counter offer that's higher than yours but lower than their asking price. This means that the seller is willing to negotiate with you. In this case, I would look to meet somewhere in the middle with the seller and see if you can come to an agreement. Doing this can help you save thousands of dollars off the asking price. 3. The seller either makes a counteroffer that's still pretty close to the asking price, or they just simply decline your offer. This is a clear sign that the seller will only accept an offer if it's near the asking price, and they're pretty much unwilling to negotiate. Maybe they feel they'll have enough buyer competition to get the price they're looking for from someone else, or they simply don't mind if their home stays on the market. You really need to think about how bad do you actually want this property. Is this some sort of unique property that you can rarely find for sale on the market, but you really want? If this is some sort of rare property, you may want to play ball with the seller because you might have to wait months or maybe even years before you can find another one like that on the market. In a situation like that, I would once again recommend my buyer to make their highest and best offer. Think about the most that you would pay for a property and just leave it at that. If the seller still doesn't accept your offer, then it is what it is. If you feel this is an average property and you can find a better deal elsewhere, however, then I suggest that you simply leave this deal alone. The best thing you can do is walk away. It's like a toxic relationship.